On a chilly Saturday in late December 2021, I traveled to Vermont to celebrate Christmas with my family. I planned to spend the weekend there, arriving on Christmas Day and returning home on Monday. The night before, I had been at my girlfriend Lauren's family gathering for Christmas Eve. However, for Christmas itself, I had decided to celebrate with my own family. Lauren didn't come along with me to Vermont, as she had her own holiday plans with her parents. Our family celebration was a small affair, as most of our relatives were scattered across the East Coast. The group consisted of my parents, my older sister Emily, her boyfriend Eric, my aunt Diane, my uncle Steve, and me. My parents' spacious home provided plenty of room for all of us to stay comfortably. Following our usual family tradition, we gathered in the living room after dinner to enjoy a Christmas movie by the warm glow of the fireplace. This year, my dad chose Bad Santa, one of his all-time favorites. Afterward, we treated ourselves to pumpkin pie topped with ice cream before settling in for a few rounds of card games. By around 11 p.m., everyone started turning in for the night, retreating to their respective sleeping arrangements. Emily and Eric took one of the spare bedrooms, while Diane and Steve took the other. I didn't mind sleeping on the pull-out couch in the living room. It was cozy by the fireplace and Christmas tree, and I enjoyed the peaceful atmosphere. I left the TV on as I was dozing off, enjoying the flicker of lights from the Christmas tree. When I felt myself slipping into sleep, I turned off the TV and tree lights, leaving only the dying embers of the fire to faintly illuminate the room. Eventually, the fire went out entirely, and the room was plunged into darkness as I drifted off into a dream. In my dream, it was still Christmas, but we weren't at my parents' house. Instead, we were at my uncle's home, surrounded by more family members, including my cousin Sarah and my aunt Maya and Maria. We were all sitting at the dinner table when, suddenly, the dream took a disturbing turn. Everyone fell silent and turned to look at me. Then, in a grave tone, my Aunt Maria said, "There's someone in the house. Wake up." I woke up with a jolt, my heart racing. Something about the way the dream ended felt deeply unsettling. Sitting up on the pull-out couch, I scanned the dark room. The tall ceilings of the living room, which usually felt open and inviting, now made me feel exposed and vulnerable. I was trying to calm myself when I heard the faint creak of a floorboard near the area where the kitchen met the living room. My eyes darted to the source of the sound, and in the doorway, I thought I saw a shadowy figure standing motionless. My voice trembled as I called out, "Is someone there?" No one answered, but the figure remained. My unease grew as I sat up straighter, trying to get a better look. Suddenly, the shadow moved. It wasn't my imagination, it was a person. "Who is that?" I called out louder, but whoever it was turned and walked toward the back door. Moments later, I heard the door close. Panic surged through me as I began shouting for my family. Within moments, my dad, Steve, Emily, and Eric were rushing into the living room. I quickly explained what had happened, and it became clear the intruder wasn't any of them. The men in the family threw on coats and shoes and headed out into the freezing night to investigate. In the fresh snow, we found a set of footprints leading from the back door into the woods behind the house. The dark, dense forest loomed ahead, and none of us were eager to follow the tracks into its depths at that hour. Instead, we called the police. While waiting for them to arrive, Eric and I stayed in the backyard, nervously watching the woods. The thought that someone could be out there, hidden in the shadows and possibly watching us, sent chills down my spine. Meanwhile, inside the house, the others checked for signs of theft. Surprisingly, nothing of significant value seemed to be missing. My parents didn't leave jewelry or money lying around, and the Christmas presents were untouched. It was baffling and unsettling to think that someone had been in the house, but hadn't taken anything. When the police arrived, they followed the footprints as far as they could into the woods. However, the trail eventually became too difficult to trace. No other break-ins were reported that night, and there were no stories of similar incidents in the news the next day. Perhaps it was an isolated attempt, someone trying to grab valuables but fleeing upon realizing the house wasn't empty. Or maybe their intentions were something far more sinister. Either way, the experience left me deeply unsettled. The next night, I found it nearly impossible to sleep in that living room. Every time I closed my eyes, the image of the dark figure standing in the kitchen doorway haunted me. Even now, the memory of that Christmas night remains vivid, a stark reminder of just how vulnerable we truly are, even in the supposed safety of our own homes.